The Incredible Hulk 1982 animated television series was closely based on the Hulk comic books from Marvel. And the series only ran for 13 episodes on NBC and was part of a combined hour with Spider-Man and His Amazing Friends. I loved this show as a kid. It's amazing how they were able to run the same episodes again the next season and keep it going without even one more new episode. The origin of the Hulk was presented much closer to the comics version than the live-action version with Bill Bixby and Lou Ferrigno, which had just ended that same year. The supporting cast featured the comics characters Betty Ross, Rick Jones, General Ross, and Ned Talbot, who was actually named Glenn Talbot in the comics. The characters Rio and his only daughter Rita were added, and they didn't appear in the comic books. In this cartoon, the Hulk could talk, unlike the live-action series. They also went back to Bruce Banner instead of David Banner, as they did in the Bill Bixby series. Now, this was the second Hulk animated series. In 1966, the Hulk appeared in 13 7-minute segments as part of TV's The Marvel Superheroes. The Spidey Goes Hollywood episode of Spider-Man and His Amazing Friends, first broadcast in late 1981, served as something of a backdoor pilot for the Incredible Hulk cartoon show. Other changes from the comics was that the Hulk's best friend, Rick Jones, had long blonde hair and wore a cowboy hat all the time. It was a great series, but it did have one famous issue, and that whenever the Hulk changed back to Banner, his clothes would amazingly reappear. Perhaps it was just to save time explaining how Banner found new clothes in the middle of nowhere, or save him from having to explain why he didn't have a shirt on to General Ross or Betty, and save us, the viewing audience, of wasted time that could have been better used for the Hulk smashing. Stan Lee did the narration for the show, which I always thought was awesome.
But no mere miss can imprison the savage She-Hulk.
Some of the same background music was used for the equally awesome show Dungeons & Dragons. And Boyd Kirkland did layouts for the show and would end up writing and directing on the Batman the Animated Series and X-Men Evolution. Paul Dini from the Batman Animated Series did some writing for the show too. The Hulk's design was based on the art of Sal Buscema, who always did an awesome job of drawing the Hulk in the comic books of the day. Now here's something I didn't know that I just recently found out that's really cool. The voice of Bruce Banner was none other than Zan of the Wonder Twins, from the Super Friends, cartoon voice actor Michael Bell. In 1973, he was Mark on the Hanna-Barbera series Speed Buggy. From 77 to 84, he played two of his best-known roles, Zan and Gleek, and he also voiced the Riddler on Challenge of the Super Friends. And he did provide the voice of Lex Luthor as a young man in the episode History of Doom. Now, it's interesting to note that Bell later played Lex Luthor in the 1988 Superman series full-time. And here's something kind of interesting. Stan Jones, who was the voice of the adult Lex Luthor on the Super Friends, did the voice of the leader on an episode of the Incredible Hulk animated series. Now, Michael Bell was also the voice of another DC superhero, another show I liked to watch back in the day from 79 to 81, Plastic Man. Now, this is interesting. He was big in the 80s. I mean, he played several different Smurfs, and he was on the Transformers animated show, and he was Duke on G.I. Joe. So he was on a lot of cool stuff back in the 80s. The voice of the Incredible Hulk himself was done by Bob Holt, who sadly passed away at the early age of 56. He once complained that Bell got all the easy parts while he had to do the difficult growling scenes. I guess it's hard on his throat. Previously, before working on the Hulk, he had done the voice of Hanna-Barbera's Grape Ape.
You're in Dr. Banner's house, or what's left of it.
Rick Jones was voiced by Michael Horton, who also appeared in a lot of classic TV shows and films like MASH and Star Trek and 21 Jump Street. He did a lot of voiceover work in animation in the 80s, including Transformers and G.I. Joe.
Look, there's Bruce on the floor over there. He's breathing normally.
Now, B.J. Ward was the voice of Betty Ross, and she was also the voice of Scarlet on G.I. Joe, and if you remember this one, Jane of the Jungle. Now, that show came on alongside Godzilla, the Hanna-Barbera Godzilla Power Hour. It was kind of a cool show back in the day. Now, she was also the voice of Velma Dinkley in Scooby-Doo on Zombie Island, The Witch's Ghost, Alien Invaders, and Scooby-Doo and the Cyber Chase. Oh, and she was also Betty Rubble in various Flintstones productions from the 80s to the early 2000s. And she did a lot of other animated series as well. Now, the music was one of the most awesome parts of this show. And the music was composed by Johnny Douglas, who sadly passed away in 2003. Douglas composed and conducted music for television series including Spider-Man and His Amazing Friends, Dungeons and Dragons, G.I. Joe, and the Transformers. So if you grew up in the 80s, the music of Johnny Douglas was a huge part of your childhood. Now, out of the 13 episodes, some of the best episodes, the ones I remember the most, were the third episode, Origin of the Hulk, which is a retelling of the Hulk's origin. And the biggest difference between the comics version and this version was the replacement of a Russian spy with an alien that was seeking the secret of Bruce's gamma bomb. Now, episode 4, When Monsters Meet, featured a battle between the Hulk and Quasimodo, and was the only episode to not feature the army base. Instead, the action all took place in Paris. Now, this episode was remade into a one-shot comic book, which of course I bought when I was a kid. Episode 7 featured my favorite subject, which is time travel, when the Hulk travels back in time and is faced with cavemen and dinosaurs. Speaking of time travel, if you love the subject as much as I do, let me recommend my book series, The Time Cruisers. In the first book, a group of teenagers from the 50s, a professor, and a government agent from World War II end up fighting time-traveling Nazis, an adventure that takes them across several time periods, including the epic beginnings of the Great Flood from the Bible and the Exodus from Egypt with the children of Israel and Moses. And if you love Western action with a sci-fi twist, then you'll love the second book, The Man from Nowhere. Now, episode 10 featured the Hulk's biggest enemy from the comics, the Leader. In episode 11, guest starred the Hulk's cousin, She-Hulk, and Bruce and Rick travel to Los Angeles to visit Bruce's cousin, Jennifer Walters, to try to learn how she is able to maintain her intelligence when she changes into the She-Hulk, but their attempt is endangered thanks to the efforts of the terrorist group Hydra.
Hail Hydra!
Now, if you'd like me to do a video on the 90s Hulk animated series, let me know in the comments below. And thanks for watching, and let me know what you thought of this video. Please subscribe to support this channel. It makes a huge difference, and it's really appreciated. And please hit the like button and the bell icon for future notifications so you don't miss any future videos. And thanks a lot.